Sam, it's time for me to introduce you to your new crush.
Go on.
Canadian Club Lemon Crush.
Of course, the taste buds have been screaming for a change.
And Canadian Club Lemon Crush is listening, with its balance of lemony zest and the smooth taste of Canadian Club.
Right now, there are 2,500 six-packs to be won. Scan your can or enter online for a chance, and always drink responsibly.
Canadian Club Lemon Crush. This zesty refreshment is your new crush.
Welcome back to Sugar Mama's Fireplay, the podcast where we ignite your financial independence. Together, we fuel your early retirement goals and dreams, and I help you build long-term sustainable wealth and financial harmony. Today, I want to talk about something that I believe sits at the core of every financial success story, and that is motivation. I'm not talking about a quick burst of inspiration and definitely not a fleeting moment of energy. Instead, I'm talking about that deep, sustainable motivation, that money motivation, the kind that gets you through those really hard, even boring and uncomfortable parts of your financial journey, the nitty-gritty, frustrating, confronting money management, and the motivation that you build that can actually carry you into a future where you're actually unrecognizable from the person that you are today before you began. So right now, so many of us, including myself, are really starting to run low on money motivation. You know, we're 3/4 of the way through the year and it feels already so long. And the goals that we set out to achieve can seem so far away. And life is already getting in the way. But the thing is, motivation isn't something you either have or don't have. We need to remember it's actually something that we create for ourselves, something that we consistently nurture, and of course, something that we protect at all times. Now, this episode is actually inspired by something I recently listened to, and it is called The Motivation Manifesto by Brendon Burchard. And in listening to this, I was so inspired and motivated myself, and I found it so incredibly insightful. So today's episode, I wanted to help, bring the key messages and the ideas and what this book really triggered and ignited for me, and share this with you to help build this particular episode, being your very own Money Motivation Manifesto, and take you through, a step-by-step plan of things that I learned and things that I actually do myself to help you keep your own financial drive alive and burning strong so that you can achieve your own financial freedom goals, the financial freedom goals that I believe in you and that I believe you really deserve. So let's get cracking. Let's go to the heart of this. What is really motivation? What is it all about? What is motivation? What does it look like? How do we know we've got it? So motivation is actually not a personality trait. It's something that we practice. It's not about waiting for the right mood or hoping that you'll magically wake up one morning and feel like doing those hard things. It's about deliberately creating the energy and the focus to actually act, to do the work, even when it is most inconvenient, most confronting, and most uncomfortable and frustrating. In terms of money, motivation drives you to go and finally do that budget instead of just avoiding the numbers and continuing to bury your head in the sand. It's what forces you to go through your bank transactions and see why your budget didn't work this month. It's the motivation that makes you go and invest that $500 instead of going and splurging it somewhere else. It's the motivation that makes you go and check your superannuation fees and the investments and look at how it's performing instead of just ignoring the statement, pressing delete, or just throwing it in the bin. It is the motivation that actually helps you start paying down debt and see dollar by dollar your debt, your responsibilities reducing, instead of continuing to just ignore it and watch that debt plateau, or even worse, skyrocket. Motivation is the bridge between where we are right now today and where we want to be financially in the future. If we don't have this motivation, we are going to drift. And drifting is so dangerous. This is where the years slip by and all those opportunities to build wealth quietly pass us by. And years later, we're left scratching our head going, what happened? What did I miss? Why didn't I do anything? And, this is why people always say to me, Canna, why didn't I come and see you years and years ago? So let's stop that right now, in this very moment together. So the next thing I really want to explain, and this was probably one of the most powerful insights from this particular book, is understanding where fear and freedom sit with motivation and how they work against each other. So when it comes to motivation, there is often two driving forces. The first being fear, the second being freedom. Now, fear might look like, the fear of running out of money in retirement, or, the fear of being stuck in a job that you absolutely hate, or the fear of having to rely on the government, or retiring in poverty, or the fear of leaving your family in a financially vulnerable position, or actually the most common one that I would hear all the time is the fear of not repeating, or the fear of repeating, I should say, a childhood instability. Fear isn't bad necessarily because it can spark that initial required action. But if you're using fear to fuel your motivation, that's not sustainable. The real power comes from when you learn how to shift that fear into freedom, because freedom is then sustainable. Freedom is the one that, pulls you towards paying off your home. Freedom is the one that, pulls you towards finally making that investment and then making that next investment and start building that passive income. Freedom is where you are driven towards choosing a career path that you love, not because you need to go down that path. And freedom is obviously building up passive income so that you never have to stress about the bills. Fear can be great to give you that initial kick up the arse to get you started. But the moment you're on your way, you need to learn how to convert that, to flick the switch with fear and shift it into freedom. So this is a really great practical tip that I highly recommend, and something I've done with a lot of my clients in the past, to try and rewire and reframe their fears into a sense of freedom. So what I recommend you do is you write down your biggest fears. It doesn't matter what they are. It doesn't matter how silly they are. Just write them down, because we need to acknowledge them so that we can then dissect them, break them down, question them, challenge them, and then flick the switch and rework them so that they actually create a sense of freedom to drive us and build that motivation. So, for example, you might write down the fear, and I'm even going to use myself here. The fear of, losing my home, or actually one of my biggest fears is my fear of financial instability, which is something that was, for me, through my eyes, was triggered from childhood in seeing, volatility in finances. That's a fear of mine. Now, if I use that fear to use for my money motivation, it's not going to last very long. And it's also very toxic to my body and my mindset. But instead, I focused and rewired this and rewritten this as changing it to freedom. Freedom of having consistent financial stability and even financial harmony. And what that really looks like, which for me is having savings, emergency savings, the right amount of emergency savings, having other sources of income, having passive income sources, growing passive income sources, making sure that debt is always very manageable and that it is going south in the direction that I want. So when you do this and you learn to rewrite these fears, you can really see how it sits differently in your body. It goes from feeling tense and aggressive, even somewhat ill and toxic, to feeling light, to feeling empowered, to feeling inspired, to feeling a sense of clarity and purpose. So, for example, your fear, as I said the example before, your fear of maybe losing your home, you would flick this to freedom. So your freedom goal is paying off your home completely. Your fear of leaving your family in a financially vulnerable position, well, you switch that to the freedom and desire to build emergency money, the freedom and desire to be able to manage your cash flow and to allocate your money into your various accounts so that you've always got money there. Your fear of not being able to retire, or retiring in poverty, or retiring where you're completely reliant on the government. Flick that to being able to retire financially independent, being completely reliant on yourself and feeling proud. See how the difference sits in your body. As I said, freedom statements, when you write them down, they feel expansive, they feel inspiring, they feel energizing. That's where lasting motivation lives. And when we can do this, we can tap into this at any time because we've learned to ignite it, light it up within us, and it now sits within us. So whenever we're feeling fearful, we just flip back to the freedom feeling within ourselves. Then, of course, we need to understand the importance of fuel when it comes to building that sustainable motivation in our lives. Motivation is never a one-time spark. You've got to keep feeding your own motivation. So what I recommend you do is you get crystal clear with your goals. I always say, and I think this saying comes from Denise Dufferfield-Thomas, is money loves definition and clarity. Don't have these flaky goals. I want to be rich. Get really detailed, get juicy, get in there. I want $50,000 a year in passive income from my share portfolio by age 55. Or I want $70,000 saved up in my online home deposit savings account by the 1st of December 2027. Make sure it is really clear with what you want. Then once you've got your big, sexy goal, break it down, work backwards from that. And this is what I do with my financial planning clients. I look at where they want to land, then I draw the roadmap or the flight path from the end point, the last destination, all the way back to where they stand today. And we do this by lots of small goals. Big goals naturally feel overwhelming. So what you do is you slice them and dice them into really small, achievable wins, even like daily wins. And it's exactly the same principle behind what I did with the $1,000 project. $1,000 at a time is what I focused on. I didn't ever set out to build a $350,000 share portfolio. I just went, okay, what can I do right now? What feels achievable? What's manageable? What can I believe in myself doing? Well, it's $1,000. So that's all I did. And I just rinsed and repeated over and over again. Break those goals down. Work from where you want to land. Work all the way backwards to where you are today. And don't worry about how much you can do. Just do your best. Then, of course, I want you to look at really challenging complacency. When you're working on your motivation, ask yourself, is this really the very best that I can do? Settling for fine, it might feel safe, it might feel comfortable, it might even feel, relaxing. But the problem with this is when we're just settling for fine, it can keep us from really discovering what is truly possible for us. It can hold us back. It can really, put a bit of a block into what we really could achieve for ourselves. It's really limiting. It's okay to be in this place for a little bit, to be able to reflect, recharge, even recalibrate, but not for very long. We need to get back in driving, in moving, in growing, not just settling with complacency. So go and challenge that complacency. And when you ask yourself, is this really the best I can do? You will know what that honest answer really looks like. And if your answer is actually, I could probably be doing a little bit more, listen to it and then act on it. This is not about punishing yourself, being mean to yourself, or burning yourself up. It's about really tapping into what truly exists within you already and honoring that to give yourself the best life possible. And when you do this, you actually discover it's like an onion. You discover there's more about yourself that you can actually do better at. And then you do better, and then you go, actually, I can go further with this. It's obviously like a muscle. You get stronger and stronger. That is what happens when you face complacency and look it dead in the eyes with honesty. Next is obviously to look at celebrating all that progress. Every $500 that you have saved, every $1,000 that you've gone and invested, every $100 that you've salary sacrificed, every dollar that you've even put towards that buy now, pay later debt or that credit card debt that's been chasing you for far too long. Every little win matters. It really does matter. And it's important that we go and recognize this because that's what fuels our motivation. And it allows us to respect the power of consistency when it comes to our financial journey and maintaining our money motivation. And of course, we've got to make sure we review this on a regular basis. I like to check in on our budget and our cash flow and our transactions at least twice a week. It means that we catch things, we stay focused, we stay in control. And if something does blow out, I can quickly and easily jump on it. So I recommend everyone checks in with their motivation on a regular basis. Are these goals still in alignment to my values and my purpose and my desires? Do I need to make some adjustments? Do I need to make some tweaks and changes? And of course, how am I tracking? Don't be afraid to make changes. That's perfectly fine. And that's actually a really good sign, because it means you're getting a deeper understanding as to what's important to you and where you really want to go. And when you make those tweaks and changes, you're making it even better for yourself. You're making it even more personal, more meaningful, even deeper financially in what it's going to take for you, not just your bank balance, but for your own personal growth and development.
Callum, it's time to introduce you to your new crush.
Go on.
Canadian Club Lemon Crush.
Of course, the taste buds have been screaming for a change.
And Canadian Club Lemon Crush is listening, with its balance of lemony zest and the smooth taste of Canadian Club.
Right now, there are 2,500 six-packs to be won. Scan your can or enter online for a chance. And always drink responsibly.
Canadian Club Lemon Crush. This zesty refreshment is your new crush.
And then, of course, you need to look at expectancy. This is about faith, building your own faith. Faith is that quiet force that keeps you going when the results feel invisible and completely unachievable. You invest $500 per month in dividend-paying shares. At first, you may be starting with, say, $5 in dividends, and it feels pointless. You're going, why? What's the point? This is nothing. I'm not getting anywhere. But here's the secret. Staying consistent, reinvesting every dividend, or, continuing on with a salary sacrificing strategy or a debt payment plan, or building up your deposit money. Just staying consistent, reinvesting the interest, adding to it when you can. Years later, that $5 you invested, or those $5 in dividends, or that $1,000 you put into savings, or that $20,000 savings account, that then becomes so much bigger. That's where you see the six-figure share portfolio. You see six figures in your savings account. You see 6 or even 7 figures in your superannuation investment portfolio. The growth happens if you can trust in the process and respect it and stick to it. Motivation without expectancy, it can be fragile. But expectancy is what builds unshakable belief so that you keep going, even when times are tough, they're confronting, they're fearful, or you're just simply exhausted and tired. You've got to have that faith in yourself to keep going, to stay focused, and to keep your eye on the prize. And then the great thing for motivation and money motivation is using visualization as a really powerful tool. It's one of my favorite tools, particularly when it comes to manifestation. And in fact, in my money manifestation course that I run, I talk and share some really powerful practices when it comes to doing visualization and incorporating it into your daily habit system. It's such an underused tool for building motivation and to actually seeing not just your successes financially, but in so many other areas of your life. So spend time imagining yourself doing the beginning, the middle, and the end. Don't just rush towards the end where you're signing the contract for your new job, or getting the keys in your hand for your new home, or, quitting your job because you're now retired. You've got to go through the beginning, getting started, the middle, even those tough times, and overcoming and rising above those challenging times, all the way through to the end. Watch yourself in the first person and in the third person. Watch yourself transferring money from your savings account to your credit card debt. Watch yourself buying another parcel of shares. Watch yourself inspecting properties. Watch yourself having a phone call with your solicitor, organizing to exchange contracts. Watch yourself or imagine yourself in a meeting with your mortgage broker, talking about all the different loan options. Watch yourself checking your superannuation account and seeing how much income that portfolio has earned you. Visualization is unbelievable. It is not just about daydreaming. It's actually about building neural pathways in your brain, makes your own behavior so much easier to do in real life. In fact, you don't even try and do it or think about it, you just organically do it. It's like a mental dress rehearsal for success. It is incredible when you do this because you start to not just achieve your goals, but you start to exceed them without actually trying too hard. And those goals that you may have initially thought were ridiculous and impossible, but you thought, hey, why not? I'll have them anyway. They start to actually become possible. It's a really eye-awakening experience. So what I love to do myself personally, and what I highly recommend, and I talk about this in the Money Manifestation course, is, every night before you go to bed, or also in the morning, which is even more powerful, is just spending 2 minutes visualizing yourself doing the work, working on your money goals, reviewing your budget, saying, you know what, actually, I'm not going to go and buy that dress, even though I'd love it. It looks great and I'd love to wear it. I'd actually really like to put that $500 or $100, whatever it may be, into my share portfolio. And watch yourself feel really proud, feel a sense of respect and self-control. Notice how much easier and more enjoyable the whole process of working on your money comes when you incorporate visualization on a regular daily basis into your life, and how it fuels your own money motivation to new levels where you won't even recognize yourself. And then we need to talk about money motivation and the power of now, the power of today. One of the biggest killers of motivation is living in the past, looking in the rear vision mirror. Particularly, I like to say this when it comes to investing. Regretting those decisions, wishing you coulda, woulda, shoulda started earlier, comparing yourselves to others, which is the thief of joy. None of this serves you in any positive way whatsoever. Sure, yes, I agree. The past can definitely inform us. It gives us wisdom, it gives us lessons, it gives us messages, but is nothing that we can change. We can only take what we've gained in a positive way and move forward. The present moment is where all your power lies and lives today. So what I recommend you do is ask yourself, what can I do right now in this very moment to move forward with my life and my financial journey? Okay, all right, I could go and check my bank accounts, or I could go and check how much money I owe in credit card debt, or I could go and check and see exactly what my mortgage is, or I could go and check and see what interest rate I'm being paid. And perhaps I can go and call a mortgage broker and see if they can get me a better deal. Or perhaps I could do some food planning and try and get my grocery bills down tonight for the week. Or perhaps I could go and look at my superannuation investments and maybe do another risk profile and see if my risk profile has changed. Or perhaps I could look at my buy now pay letter of payments and see if I can maybe put a random $10 on that debt to be that one step closer to being debt. What can I do right now that is in positive alignment for the success of my goals? See how that takes you away and drops you back into the present moment, away from the past into the present. And also then readjust your head and your eyes and your brain into the future again. See how this makes you feel enthusiastic again and makes you feel grateful. Grateful for the opportunities to what lies ahead for you to learn, build, grow. Even if it means undoing some of the things you may have done in the past. You're getting the opportunity to fix things, and to not just fix things, to actually build something that's bigger and better. Catch up for lost time, or perhaps build something that's even more powerful. Use everything as a blessing in disguise. Those really small present daily actions are really the building blocks for your future motivation. So think about what you can do today and think about where you are going. A question I love to ask myself is, when I catch myself feeling negative or regretful or embarrassed or even remorseful or frustrated about something I did, a bad decision, a silly investment, a stupid purchase that didn't work out, all right, thinking about this, how does it serve me? And quite often, the immediate answer that comes up within myself is, it doesn't. Other than going, okay, maybe I need to stop shopping at that shop, or maybe I need to spend less time online, or perhaps I just need to do more research when it comes to investing, or bounce this off my accountant before I go and make this big decision. I can then take that going forward, so I minimize those mistakes from ever repeating again, and because I'm focusing on now, and I'm looking at where I'm going, eyes wide open into the future, which I'm excited for and I'm incredibly grateful to be able to have. And then, of course, the importance of your own thoughts and self-talk. One of my favorite quotes is by Napoleon Hill. We become what we think about. Our thoughts really do shape our wealth. If you are constantly saying, I'm bad with money, it's too hard, I'm never going to get ahead, your brain is going to constantly look for proof. It's that confirmation bias. So how do we stop this? Well, we need to stop this immediately. Instead, look to build a positive money mindset. Look at what you are doing in a positive way. You are listening to this podcast right now. That is a really positive thing. That means you're learning. You're open to learning. You're starting to do the practical things. You're changing your mindset, your attitude, your energy. You are learning how to master your money. You are learning how to do a budget. You are listening to how people do different budgets so you can have a go at doing your own. You are learning about the importance of investing and how to actually practically invest, how to buy shares, how to look after your superannuation, how to protect your wealth through personal insurance. You are doing the positive things, whether you realize it or not. I just want to help you realize that you're actually doing great already. Just take a moment to be thankful for yourself. And every single day, if you're listening to this podcast or listening to my other episodes, you're getting closer and closer to financial independence. Yes, it might be slow. Yes, it might be frustrating, but it's not always going to be like this. There are going to be times where it's painfully slow as you pay down debt, but then you start saving and you realize your savings actually is a lot faster now because you don't have debt holding you back. Or you make that first investment, which is often the hardest investment, the first investment, that first $1,000. But then you're doing it again and you have bursts and spurts. You have times where you go, wow, I just invested another $5,000. That would happen a lot faster than I ever expected I could do. But then the next $3,000 might be a little bit slow. That's just the journey of life. Ebbs and flows. It comes in waves, big, strong, heavy waves, and then it might be flat and just might be coasting through life. We need to accept that, but we always come from a place of positivity and kindness. That's the way we talk about ourselves and the way that we talk to ourselves internally is really important. You've got to learn again to flick that switch. Say to yourself, every day I'm getting closer to financial independence. Every day I'm getting closer to being debt-free. Every day I'm building my passive income. Every day I'm getting closer to having a comfortable retirement. The hard work that I'm doing is most definitely worth it. And I'm going to be so proud of myself because I'm already proud of myself. I'm going to inspire other people along the way. This is not just about how you talk about yourself, but also it's about how you talk about yourself to others. When you're having conversations with others, whether it be your loved ones, your neighbors, your friends, your work colleagues, self-belief is contagious. You want to make sure that your energy is worth catching. And when you talked about your journey, like, yeah, I'm doing the hard work. Yeah, I may have stuffed up in my youth, made some silly, regretful mistakes, but I'm learning, I'm growing, and this is what I'm doing, and this is why I'm so excited, and these are my goals, and this is my dream. Do you know I can't even speak all my words coming back. Do you know how appealing and attractive it is hearing someone talk about their goals and talk about their goals with passion, even though they may sound ridiculous? But it is something that is really inspiring, and energy is contagious. So you want to ask yourself, is my energy worth catching? What's my vibration like? And I've shared this a long, long time ago, but I want to share it again because I think it's really helpful. But when I go to the gym, I always try and make sure I go and exercise next to someone who is working really hard, someone who is pedaling hard on the bike or running really fast on the treadmill or lifting heavy weights, because just having their energy around me and seeing them in the corner of my eye working really hard subconsciously pushes me harder and faster and challenges me and dares me and inspires me and empowers me. So be aware of the impact you have on others and how others have an impact on yourself. And if you're ever interested in learning more about it, obviously I'll go and link my Money Mindset Manifestation program because I have so many discussions and techniques around this. But anyway, let's keep going. And I want to talk about keeping it fresh. Motivation thrives on novelty, spicing things up. If your energy dips, which is normal and natural, it happens to all of us, this is your sign that you need to start shaking things up. So do something you haven't done before. Perhaps you do a no-spend weekend challenge, and you make it fun with your family, you do it with your friends, or you do it with your partner, or you explore a new investment option. Doesn't mean you go and do it necessarily, because I don't encourage high-risk investments, but you explore getting to understand something that you don't know about before, getting to understand it. Yes, you might end up investing it, but yes, you might end up understanding and going, wow, I'm so glad I understand this, but actually it's not right for me, or it's not right for me right now. I can come back to that further down the track. Or perhaps, you look at taking on like a really different side hustle that you've never done before, that you want to like dip your toe in, like a short-term burst of a small business where you have all the things that you need. So it doesn't necessarily cost you anything, but you can just have a burst of a particular service or offering that you want to do something different. Perhaps you like set like a micro goal, like saving $500 or even $50 for the week or for the month. Keep it fresh, keep it challenging. That is what helps bring back excitement. And that excitement helps fuel persistence and builds our own money manifestation and our own money motivation. And then, of course, be your own role model. Don't wait for the mentor or the role model to appear in your life. Become the person that your future self would be so proud of. Or if you like, build your own imaginary role model, which is something I also share in my Money Mindset Manifestation program. I think about the people that I admire the most. And, there are people that inspire me and motivate me in relationships. There are people who inspire and motivate me around fitness and health and nutrition. And then I think about the people who inspire me and motivate me through money and financial well-being and financial harmony. Some of those people I've never even met. Some of those people I've only had fleeting conversations with, and some of those people I know intimately. But I've created my own imaginary role models. I haven't waited for that person to say, hey, I'm going to be your mentor, I'm going to be your role model. I've built it myself. I've built an imaginary one, and I've built it within myself. A great question that I highly recommend asking yourself is, if my 10-year-old self was watching me right now, would they be proud of the decisions that I'm making today? Now, this is an uncomfortable one. It's a confronting one, and the answers are going to vary depending on what particular aspect you look at in your financial life. But it's really insightful, and it really does force us to go deep, reflect, and look at where we need to improve ourselves if we're serious about our future financial growth and development, where financial freedom and harmony is something that we really want to achieve for ourselves because we can really do it. Does this mean that you shop for your budget on a regular basis? Put the action behind that being that role model. One of my financial mentors and role model is Peter Thornhill. He has stuck to his investment plan. He has constantly invested long-term dividend-paying industrial shares. He is my role model. And that is exactly what I have mimicked for myself. And I have become my own role model. I have protected my financial future fiercely by looking at role models for inspiration, but then building it up within myself so that I look at myself and go, you know what? I'm so proud of what I've built. I'm so proud of where I'm going. Yes, I haven't achieved my goals completely yet, but I'm on the right path and I'm heading in the right direction. And there will be times where I have bigger successes and I leapfrog, but there'll be times where I even backpedal. That's okay, but I'm still staying motivated. And that's the key here. I'm not quitting. I'm not giving up. I'm not throwing the towel in ever. Motivation really does multiply and magnify when you realize that you're not just doing this, for yourself. You're modeling behavior for everyone around you. It's where that energy comes in. And whether it be for your children, your partner, or your community, you've got to be that change that you want to see in the world. Be your own role model, which you've built from drawing out the strengths of the people that you love and that you find inspiring and empowering around you. So as we wrap up today's episode, and apologies, it's a bit longer than usual, but as you can tell, I'm really passionate about having and finding and tuning in and maintaining your own money motivation. So this is your own Money Motivation Manifesto. It's not just about these pep talks. And of course, save this so you can come back to it and listen to it anytime you need a pep talk from me. But it's about building and fueling and protecting the drive that exists within you that is going to carry you all the way to achieve your financial freedom goals. I want you to define those fears, and I want you to flick the switch of them and turn them into financial freedom goals. I want you to break down your ambitions. Give them detail. Give them sexy details. Visualize yourself succeeding. Stay in the now and never forget, you can be your own best and most inspiring money motivation role model. Motivation is the key. that unlocks your financial potential. And with it, there is absolutely no limit as to what you can create for yourself and, of course, for the people that you love. So take this Money Motivation Manifesto and make it your very own. And in the meantime, of course, we're going to keep that financial fire together, burning bright between me and you and everyone else that we're inspiring with our contagious energy. Thank you everyone for listening to Sugar Mama's Fireplay. If you could do me a huge favor and send this to anyone who's feeling a bit flat right now with their financial goals and their financial journey, because it might ignite something important and powerful within them so that they can continue on with their own successes. And if you can leave me, of course, a rating and review, that would mean so much to me. All right, everyone, I'll check in with you again this Friday for Start Here. Thank you for listening. Ciao for now.
Sam, it's time for me to introduce you to your new crush.
Go on.
Canadian Club Lemon Crush.
Of course, the taste buds have been screaming for a change.
And Canadian Club Lemon Crush is listening, with its balance of lemony zest and the smooth taste of Canadian Club.
Right now, there are 2,500 six-packs to be won. Scan your can or enter online for a chance, and always drink responsibly.
Canadian Club Lemon Crush. This zesty refreshment is your new crush.